Hello and welcome once again to Lower League Lingo. We're back and no, John Foster hasn't had a haircut. We are in a superb situation. It is Chris Gadsby. I've wanted to get this lad onto our channel for a long time, for he has been a long time lover of the WNL. We'll be getting his thoughts on what's been happening this season right on the other side of this. Yes, good evening. Welcome. Lovely to have you along for the ride, whether you're watching this back or whether you come on and watch it live. It will be good to have your company. Gareth, you are here as ever. We weren't expecting you, but as ever, a nice dramatic late entrance, which we absolutely love. How are you doing, sir?
Good, thank you. Hopefully I can be as impactful as Harry Maguire today.
Well, I mean, yes, it's all about the impact, that's for sure. And Chris, like I say, first time getting you on the channel, but an absolute veritable Wikipedia of knowledge when it comes to WNL. Brilliant to have you along. How are you doing, sir?
I'm all right, thank you. Hopefully I can live up to that introduction. I'm not. I'm so much of a Wikipedia, but yeah, 182, episode 183 of the Women's Football Chat, which is all about the FAWNL, goes live tomorrow. So I've been doing this for 4 years or so now, and been in amongst the league for the best part of 7-8 years now. So
there we go. So this is some knowledge that we have managed to get across today, and we are very much looking forward to seeing what you can add to what we've been doing. We've been having a good old go this year, but who knows, maybe Chris will be able to come up with a couple of bits and pieces that we've not yet managed to do. So as ever, we're going to run through our WNL leagues and just sort of have a little look at how things are. There's only the one game for the most part that's been played over the last fortnight. Although the Northern Premier is, of course, one where it's slightly different there. Some teams had to play twice. Forest, we're looking at you. So, lots to talk about there. We will go to Gareth first, just so we can have a little run over what is going on here.
It helps if I unmute.
Definitely helps.
I think we're at a point in the season now where everybody has just a single game to go this coming Sunday. And although not mathematically done, I would be incredibly surprised if it's not Forest that lift this trophy on Sunday. I think it would require West Brom to pull something special out of the bag away to Forest, and would require Wolves to put on one hell of a display against Feds at home. I think we'll expect to see Forest crowned champions at the weekend. Obviously, as we've discussed so far as well, currently there's Halifax and Stourbridge both in the relegation zone. But there's a number of spanners that may potentially be thrown into the works here. First of all, obviously, we've got that reprieve for one of the Premier Division sides, depending on who comes down. That is not really any closer to being decided either. I think Sheffield United and Blackburn drew against each other at the weekend, and Portsmouth managed to get a point in their game as well. So at the moment, it's still Sheffield United propping up the bottom. So that would mean Halifax and Stourbridge would indeed get relegated. However, whilst we were on air last week, I believe, all of the kind of falling out at Hull City happened as well. So it was broken then that Hull City had written to the National League requesting voluntary relegation, which is a really difficult situation for everyone there to be involved in. Kind of discussions around mismanagement from chairs, etc. So that situation is ongoing. I'm not admittedly hugely up to speed on what is going on, but I do really feel for the players in particular and the coaching staff who will have grafted all season after winning promotion last year to be so comfortably above the relegation zone. 14 points clear is a fantastic season for them, and they will have grafted on the training pitch. They'll have grafted on Sundays as well, to get themselves into that position. And I think it is a real shame that we're looking at potentially another club where off the field decisions are kind of going to overshadow success on the pitch. We touched on it right up and down the pyramid. It was Championship last season with Reading disappearing from that. We see it at Tier 3 with Hull City now. We're seeing it at Tier 5 at times with, particularly in the Northeastern League, where the relegation zone is currently in a position where if you had walked out on the first week of the season, had lost every single game, scoring 0 points, you would stay up because of teams currently sat on -1 and -12 points. So, it's not an issue that's only at any particular level of the pyramid, but it's tricky, especially when we see women's football coming so far. For there still to be regular discussions around teams folding, teams wanting relegation, finances, etc. It's a real shame, but I think this weekend is all about celebrating Forest's success. They deserve it. They've been there or thereabouts for a number of years, and I think it is only a matter of time before the likes of Burnley and Wolves, etc., manage to get themselves out of this division as well. But this year, if you don't lose a game all season, you absolutely deserve to be where Forest are. And I know it's not done yet, but like I say, I feel pretty confident in saying that I think congratulations in order for everybody involved there.
It's a fair point to say, if you don't lose any games, you deserve to be there. You do got to feel a little bit sorry for Wolves. We've only lost one all season, and ordinarily you would imagine that would be some sort of title winning form as well. But Chris will be able to tell us more about that, as to whether or not that's generally the rule. But your ideas on this one, Chris, because this has been a bit of a crazy league for the most part. The bits in the middle, maybe not so interesting, but the top and the bottom of this division have just, I think, shocked us a little bit, really, trying to see how Forest and Wolves have been fighting together for this one. And, of course, Halifax and Stourbridge just seemingly dropping out of thin air. And especially with Stourbridge having won, I think it was 3 promotions on the trot in the manner that they did. So what have you made of the Northern Premier? And can you see, if it is Halifax and Stourbridge that go down, can you see them continuing? Can you see, we've seen the issues that are going on with Stourbridge's ground. Do you see that still being something positive that they can get out of this? Or could we again be seeing more teams disappear from the upper parts of this pyramid?
Yeah, I think, full disclosure should be that I have grown up as a Forest fan and worked for Forest Women for 5 years. As from my point of view, Forest have done what everybody expected them to do going into the season when they announced they were going full time. I expected them to be back up at the top again. It was great to commentate on the cup win a few weeks ago. Wolves' only defeat, incidentally, came to Forest, 6-1 loss at home on the 1st of September. That is their only defeat of the season, and also accounts for the vast majority of that 14-goal difference that we've alluded to earlier. I agree. I think it is pretty much done for Forest, but I think they do have to be a little careful. They put 7 past Feds a couple of weekends ago away from home. Wolves have got to host Feds, who have been locked into 6th for a few weeks now, so they're kind of on the beach, so to speak, and Wolves could easily, if they go after it, score double digits in that game and make it a little bit interesting. The irony being, of course, that if they want to get promoted, they've got to rely on their arch rivals West Brom to be able to do something at the City Ground, and so a bit torn really between winning the league and by doing that having West Brom win. But Forest, it was 3 years ago Wolves won the league, 2 years ago Forest did it, and then last year Newcastle did it, and now Forest look like they're going to do it again. If Forest do win on Sunday, then they'll only finish 1 point behind where Newcastle were last season. So it's pretty much identical in terms of their league performances. The bottom is interesting. I mean, Stourbridge, as you've alluded to there, have had all their problems, particularly in the second half of this season. I see now it's come out, they've got another year at the War Memorial Athletic Ground. So whether that will help them out a bit or not. Halifax again has struggled a bit, but did their usual kind of April run and got a few points and got themselves into 11th spot. So if the reprieve comes, which personally I don't think it will, not with only 2 games left for Sheffield United, then they are in that position now. And then you've got all of the Hull drama as well, which I mean, from what I saw, there was doubts as to whether that would stick, that request for voluntary relegation, because it has to come from kind of everybody in the board, not just from for one person. And then I saw a couple of tweets that said that the police were getting involved with possible fraud, which is a huge shame, because to have all that going around the pyramid. And I think what is interesting and not particularly great with women's football at the moment is that for every great story we've got of Forest going full time and paying people, and other clubs that are following that suit and getting in physios and improving all the time, for every one of those we've got one that goes in the other direction, like we have with Hull and Stourbridge and these clubs struggling.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, as you are, as you mentioned, a fully fledged card carrying, Nottingham Forest type of guy, because 2 years ago I went to the playoff, and it was Watford, I think it was, you were playing.
Yes.
And just narrowly missed out on that, and that always bothered me, that you could win a league and then you had to fight for the right to be able to go up in the first place. And as you mentioned, it's not the first time, but it hasn't just happened to you. The year before that, Wolves won as well, and they didn't make it through. Just even not necessarily as a Forest fan, just as a WNL fan, it's got to be better now that we know that both sides, Northern and Southern, will both get the opportunity to go up and play, rather than it being the way that it has been and having to do those stupid playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So Forest lost to Watford. Poppy Wilson in the 17th minute. I was doing that game live on Radio Nottingham. I'll never forget it, with the cross coming in from the left, and I could just see as she heads it and it loops up over Emily Batty. I'm like, oh, that's going in. And then Wolves the year before won the league and then lost to Southampton in the playoff. And Southampton have been able to cement themselves now as a championship side. Watford have come back down and will now have another year in the FAWNL. But yeah, it's a lot better now that both teams go up. I would still like to see more movement. I really quite liked the playoff from 4 to 3 and to 5 to 4 that was kind of spouted a few weeks and probably months ago now. Slightly disappointing that the situation seems to be, oh, well, if we can't have B teams, then everything else is getting scrapped anyway, which wasn't a particularly, didn't make for pleasant reading at all, because I was extremely against that, as I highlighted on the show. But yeah, I think having both go up now, how you can win a league and not get promoted was astounding. But I know that was out of the FAWNL boards, the Carol West, Jane Roberts of the times. It was completely out of their hands, because the FA said, well, only one's coming down from the championship, so what else could they do?
Well, exactly that. If anyone's coming down from the championship, what else can you do? But yeah, it never felt fair. So very, very pleased that Forest will get the chance to, because they looked good in that game, to be fair. Yeah, well, I think pretty much that is the Northern Premier. Obviously, Forest, as you mentioned, play West Brom. I think all of us deep down think it will be Forest, but I think honestly, whether it's Forest or whether it's Wolves, it's richly deserved for either side to have the opportunity to go up and perform in the Championship. So excellent news there on the Northern Premier. That, to be honest, will be the longest one that we talk about, I think, tonight, due to the joys of what's happened down the bottom there. Big shout out as well to Sporting Calcer and Hull, because obviously their wins just pop them up above Derby County there. So well done to them. Let's move to the Southern Premier. And the Southern Premier, as we can see, is not looking too bad at all. But again, we still don't have champions, and we still don't have a guaranteed team to be relegated just yet. It is pretty tight. Now, I will say this. You guys are all sitting there saying Nottingham Forest are likely to be the ones to win it. If Ipswich Town do not win this league, I will eat the entirety of my sofa. Because I don't say this to be glib, but I mean, Ipswich are playing Cheltenham, and of course, Oxford United have got to play hashtag. But I mean, my God, that's what? That's a
36 goals.
Goal swing. Yeah. If that happens, something mad has gone on. And you would argue that hashtag deserve it if they manage to swing around the 36 swing. But yes, so it looks as though it will be Ipswich who go up, which was, of course, I think called by Gareth earlier on in the season. But at the bottom, it's looking a little bit different there. Chris, tell us a little bit about this one, because Billericay and Plymouth, I mean, Billericay were in the WNL Division 1 South East when Stevenage were in there. And I remember seeing them play. They got promoted, I think, the season after. And they were doing all right. But they've just had a bit of a drop-off. They were sort of mid-table, but the last month or so, they really started to drop down the table. And now they're in real dangerous situations. Plymouth have got to play Gwalia at the weekend, which you would argue is probably the best fixture they could have had apart from MK Dons, while Billericay has to play AFC Wimbledon. So they're both winnable games for the sides at the bottom, and the goal difference incredibly close together. So we're actually in a situation where if Plymouth lose 1-0 and Billericay lose by 4 goals or more, they'd get relegated just on goal difference. So, I mean, that's quite a tight way to finish a season there as well, isn't it? What's your thoughts on the Southern Premier this season?
Yeah, correct. I mean, as you say, Ipswich, yes, they've not officially won the league, but they've won the league because 3 points clear and a 36-goal swing is not going to change. Yeah, I mean, Plymouth away at Gwalia United, Billericay Town away at AFC Wimbledon. I mean, it looked for many weeks, particularly kind of through February and early March, like that this game coming up between Plymouth and Gwalia would decide who goes down. And then Gwalia were able to get some points on the board. The one that really stands out is they managed to get that 2-0 win against hashtag United somehow, which is what's really messed hashtag United's promotion charge up. And it looks like it's going to be 2 years in a row that they finished second in that division. And yeah, Billericay Town level on points. The interesting thing you've got to remember with this one, if you go way back to November, was when Billericay Town beat Gwalia United by 1-0, and then that result got overturned because Billericay Town played an ineligible player, and they had the 3 points taken away from them. The 3 points were given to Gwalia, which ultimately looks like it might be what saves them. And Billericay Town are suddenly right back in there. If that hadn't happened, they would be 3 points clear of the relegation zone at the minute, knowing that both Gwalia United and Plymouth Argyle couldn't win, and they would be safe. That's the situation for them. And as it is, they're on the cusp of relegation. If Plymouth can better their result at the weekend, then that dodgy bit of paperwork, whatever happened there, is ultimately the thing that sent Billericay down, not anything that's on the pitch. And then at the same time, it might not matter anyway, because if Sheffield United come down from the Championship 11th, will get the reprieve and they might both stay up anyway. So it is a bit of a mess. And particularly, I think, with the Championship finishing the week after the FAWNL, the fact that you can finish in 11th and not know if you're staying up or going down isn't an ideal situation, really.
No, it's not ideal at all. It's not perfect. Gareth, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on MK Dons this season. And I'm not particularly expecting you to be talking to me about what you've seen from MK Dons. I know you're not necessarily paying huge amounts of attention to what's happening down south. But the story of MK Dons, I can't remember the exact number of people that left at the beginning of the season, but it was just an incredible walkout. I mean, the last time you saw a walkout like that, it was led by Moses. And as a result, they just had youth players. I mean, they've tried their hardest. They've worked their socks off. But 1 point, 1 draw, they've lost the rest of their games. They've got a goal difference of over 100, minus 100. And it's just not been ideal. Do you see this a lot in like tier 5, tier 6, these sort of teams that generally have been punching quite well and doing quite good, but then all of a sudden they just have a core number of players that leave, and it's just too difficult to swing it around that season.
Yeah, I think and again, I'm not hugely up to speed with the situation at MK Dons, but I think what we see often, sort of further down the pyramid with women's football, is you often kind of get a manager leave, and then that manager will bring in players that have played for them in the past. So I know that at Wythenshawe, when we left FC United to go to Wythenshawe, players came as well. Polton Vicks have players formerly of Tranmere and Merseyrail and the likes, because I think what you see kind of further down is people wanting to play football with people that they're kind of more comfortable with, people that they trust in terms of coaching and playing and so on. And although the pyramid is becoming a lot more professional, there is still that element of things. And I think that's always a risk when the way that the system is worked out is, obviously there are contracts allowed in the WNL, but there's not in the regional leagues. So registrations are valid for 12 months, and then 1st of June you're free to go wherever. But then that's then tricky when you kind of, even if it's 7 or 8 players that decide, actually I'm done for whatever reason, recruitment becomes tricky. And recruitment's tricky anyway, because I think what we're seeing is, whilst there has been a massive boom in women's football, and there has been an increase in the number of women and girls playing football, that is not yet translating into quality higher up the pyramid. I think it will do in a few years' time, but currently not necessarily the case, because evidently if you get into a new sport, you're not necessarily going to be good enough to play in the 3rd, 4th, 5th tier of it to right now. If I went and started playing darts now, I'm not going to be playing even anywhere near like the even pub league darts. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I think recruitment is difficult, and then when a big group of players leaves, that makes it really difficult as well. It happens, and I think it's just one of those unfortunate circumstances of players having coaching members of staff that they like playing for, managers having players that they trust, that they like playing for them, and unfortunately these things happen. And whilst one side is going to benefit from that, another is not. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate. It's a shame it's a shame as well for MK Dons and their fans. But I think trying to find the positives, those players that are there have probably had a season's worth of football at this level that they would not have had otherwise. So their development, although it may not seem like it now after 21 games and 20 defeats, 107 negative goal difference, next season they will be better for this experience. It may just not seem like it at the moment.
Forged in the fire, indeed. And geographically, of course, I'm sure the WNL powers that be will be quite happy should the league finish this way, because obviously Plymouth will drop down to the southwest and MK Dons to the southeast. But if Billericay are the ones that drop down, well, good luck to the people that have to decide who's going to travel to places like Exeter. So good luck to them. Just to point out as well, that 36 goal swing would have only been a 27 goal swing had it not been for the fact that Ipswich beat MK Dons 11-0 in their most recent games. So bit of a tricky one there. Right, so let's move back over to the second Northern League. And of course, we are in the situation here, Gareth, where we have finally got 2 relegated sides, but still no champion. There could be a champion. Well, there will be a champion, but who's it going to be?
Your guess is as good as mine, Barry. I've said all year that this is a league that has fascinated me. There's been times where Chorley have been top of the table, where Leeds have been top of the table. Stingers were top of the table for so long. And last weekend, I earmarked the fixture of Cheadle against Huddersfield and said that is the fixture that weekend I thought would decide where the title went. The reason I thought that would decide where the title went is because Middlesbrough were playing Doncaster Rovers. And so that felt like an easier game for them, considering that Stingers were playing Huddersfield. Now, Stingers came through that game with a 1-0 win. So they got the win, they got what they needed. However, at the Riverside, Middlesbrough ran out 7-0 winners against Donny Bells. So we're able to swing that goal difference round completely. Now, normally you would kind of think, okay, Middlesbrough in pole position here for the title. However, this weekend, Stingers are at home against Fylde. So it is well within the realms of possibility that Barnsley FC are able to kind of keep it relatively tight against Middlesbrough, concede a couple. I expect both teams to win still at the weekend, but it's going to come down to who scores the most goals. And that is absolutely mad that over the course of 22 games, it may not come down to who has the most points, but who has the best goal difference. The other thing...
You've been on the touchline. How much are they going to be scrolling on Twitter for that? Are they going to have like a media blackout, do you think? Just no tweets coming out whatsoever, just so the opposition can't know what the scores are?
I don't know, because especially like, you're there as like a professional outfit. You're going to want to kind of get things across. What's also kind of crazy is if it could still be the case where they end up on level goal difference. If Stingers win 4-0 and Borough win 1-0, which I don't think is outside the realms of possibility, we're going to end up with level goal difference, where I think then it comes down to goals scored as the separator. And Stingers have more goals, having scored 42 to Stingers 36. So Stingers need to overcome that goal difference. I wouldn't necessarily describe either side as particularly free scoring, given that they've averaging sort of between 1.5 and 2 goals a game. But yeah, super interesting. I can't call it. I genuinely don't know. I just purely based on the fact that Stingers are averaging a goal a game. I think Middlesbrough will nick it, but only just, like, literally, like we say, goal difference. And that, I think that will be a shame. I think it's a shame because it's a real indication that you can come out of the regional leagues and you can compete in the Division 1 North. And we'll touch on another team later on that have done the exact same. But yeah, we from my time at FC, from my time at Wythenshawe, we've had some really, really good games against Stingers, like 0-0 draws in the league, which was super entertaining and meant that when we were at FC, that we were likely to win the league. We managed to knock them out of the League Cup last year before the League Cup was cancelled, and this year we had them in the County Cup and got battered by them. But some really good games, and I would love to see a plucky side without the backing of a huge men's side, without necessarily the budgets that Middlesbrough have got, go and do the business. So that's what my heart thinks. My head, I think Middlesbrough will probably end up winning it, which will be a shame, because I just think it'd be nice to see a team come straight out of the regional leagues and go straight up without massive budgets, without kind of be having the biggest budget and the most money in the division. But it's also a sign, for me personally, it's a sign that next year, when we're promoted, if we recruit properly in the summer at Wythenshawe, there's no reason we can't absolutely be competitive in the league. And I think there's going to be a lot of sides getting promoted now, looking at Cheadle, looking at Rail Bedford as well, and thinking we can have a go at this. We can really have a run at this and see what we can do.
I think you're right. I mean, Chris, with this one, my question for you is double-edged on this one. So my first question is obviously around Middlesbrough and Cheadle, insofar as how do you think, whichever one of them goes up, how do you think they'll do when it gets to the Northern Premier? Because obviously we saw Stourbridge go straight up. They're pretty much looking like they're going to come straight down. Halifax came up. They had a good mid-table finish before obviously hitting the relegation zone this season. So that would be my first thing. Do you think either of them are equipped well enough to be able to consolidate in the Northern Prem? And secondly, there's a question I've been dying to ask somebody, really. Doncaster Rovers Bells. Like, these are like, to me, one of the elite names, purely because of how old they are. You know, when you think about women's football, even, I mean, I wasn't into it 10 years ago, but if you'd have asked me to name one, that would have been the name of a team that I'd have mentioned because I'd heard of them before. So for them to be playing in this tier at the moment, in tier 4, it's a little bit like having Liverpool in League One. It would just be almost unthinkable. So for them to be stuck in this position now where they're actually going to go to tier 5, what do you think has happened there that a team with such rich history is just sort of falling down the pyramid rather than strengthening and trying to move back up?
Yeah, and I think it's the same situation we've got in Southwest with Southampton Women's, another huge name that are going to end up in tier 5 next season. I mean, yeah, I'm particularly at the top. My concern with Cheadle going up is if they're doing it too quickly, which kind of we saw with Stourbridge as well, and now they're struggling again. But my gut kind of still says that Cheadle will be the ones to do it. They're at home to AFC Fylde. They could easily put 7 or 8 past them. Middlesbrough are away. They have been very poor away from home. They're 10th in the league in terms of away goals scored. They are well in the bottom half. They're 53rd in the entire 72 team FAWNL for scoring goals away from home. So they are really bad. They've had 5 away draws in their 10 away games. And if they'd have sorted that out, then this would have been done and dusted a long time ago. So I think Cheadle will go into that game with quite a bit of confidence. I mean, the bottom of Division 1 North was fascinating for so long. There was a point where like the bottom 6 were separated by about 2 points. And eventually it's just kind of tailed away for Donny Bells and for Fylde. But again, I think it shows the fragility of the women's pyramid, and you get a slight bit of mismanagement, you get the odd player leaving that was really important or the like, and it can just all go wrong for you. And I think particularly you look around that area now, Sheffield FC, Leeds are doing well. You've got the 2 Barnsleys in there as well. There's a lot of teams in and around that kind of Yorkshire area that are doing quite well. And I think that means that the player pool there, you know, you're not able to pay players and convince them to move across the country. And so I think it is harder in that division, which I think is why another reason we've seen it be so close. And you know, they've just ended up on the wrong side of it, really. But yeah, I think to lose them in the FAWNL is a big loss because, you know, I mean, there is very limited coverage of the FAWNL. I try my best each week, similar sort of thing to you guys do. There is even less in tier 5. And I think that they are at risk. We've seen a lot of teams. I did a post on it recently of teams that have come down out of the FAWNL in the last few years that are then struggling in tier 5. There's like 5 of them that are at the bottom of tier 5. One of them's already in tier 6. More of them are going to go down this year. It can be a slippery slope, and I think you know, they've either got to get back straight away next year, or it could be very, very difficult.
Yes, I fear you might be right. on that one for sure.
Just jump in very quickly with Fylde going down, like if they are looking to bounce back quickly, that's not going to be easy. Bolton being promoted from Tier 6 into that league, they've got a really good, strong group of players building something special. Mancunian Unity next season will not be happy to settle for second place like they've had to this year. They'll be pushing to go up further. Darwin have been there or thereabouts for a couple of seasons. If they can add some players in, particularly if people start to kind of move around from some of those more northern clubs, that's going to be a really competitive division next year. I'm really glad that we're not in there next year. So I don't think that's going to be easy for Fylde at all. I think I don't know how they approached this season, whether they thought they would be able to go down, kind of gather themselves and then push up. But yeah, next year the top of that regional Premier Division Northwest is going to be spicy at the top. And yeah, like I say, I'm glad that I am no part of that.
You're not wrong. Spicy indeed. Well, in the Division 1 Midlands, we have got our champions at last. They were finally crowned. Loughborough Lightning with a 5-0 win over Sutton Coldfield Town. And now they are the champions of the Division 1 Midlands. 6 points clear of Northampton, and the maths ain't matting if you think they can catch them now. So, champions, Loughborough Lightning. We already knew that Lincoln City were down. Solihull Moors are confirmed and are now in the relegation waiting room, providing nothing happens to any of the other clubs and nothing crazy goes on. If normal proceedings are going through, then we will be saying goodbye to Solihull Moors, which I don't think is that unexpected based on the season that we've had, Chris. Looking at this league, I mean, I think that there was a quite exciting title race for the top four when John was coming on and talking about everything that happened. Could have been Loughborough, although they always had those games in hand. It could have been Northampton, could have been Peterborough, could have been Leafield. Leafield dropped off a little bit towards the end there. A bit like me in a cross-country race. I never quite make it all the way to the end, while the other three just absolutely pulled away. With Loughborough Lightning getting it. How do you think they're going to do? First of all, obviously they'll go into the Northern Prem. How do you think they will get on? And yeah, when it comes to Solihull and Lincoln City, I mean, Lincoln have had it pretty poor. They are the MK Dons story, effectively, of this one. Do you know why it is that Lincoln have struggled so much? Have they lost a lot of players?
Yeah, from what I understand, they lost quite a bit again. I mean, as you said, towards the top, Loughborough Lightning there, yes, they weren't always top of the league, but they're another one that have gone unbeaten so far. They always had their games in hand. They always looked like they were going to get there. Northampton and Peterborough, two sides that have kind of been there and thereabouts over the course of the season and previous years. I think it's worth giving a very big mention to Leafield Athletic and the job that Tash Tesjel has done there, considering that they only just survived last year to turn that club around and end up being, 12 points off the top in the end, but they were top for a brief moment, kind of January, February time. And again, they're like the two new teams of Lincoln United and Worcester City have had two very good seasons. They've done what they needed to do to stay in. They said all 8 teams that came into the FAWNL this year have survived, and the 4 teams that went up from 4 to 3, they've all survived in Tier 3 as well. So it's been a good year in that respect. Lincoln's another one where, they struggled. I think it was pretty clear early on that they were going to have a very difficult season and probably end up going down. Another relatively big name. I know they used to be Notts County before they and went to Lincoln, but another somewhat big name that has got a bit of history that are ending up into Tier 5. But yeah, Division 1 Midlands, coming up this weekend, the only real battle is Northampton and Peterborough for second. Everything else, it's just a case of playing those games out.
Absolutely. And Gareth, just in our little chat at the back there, has just pointed out something that I certainly didn't spot. But yeah, Lincoln City have got the exact same record as MK Dons, including on the goal difference. So I had to go and check it. But MK Dons scored 10 goals and conceded 117, whereas Lincoln City have only scored 5 all season and conceded 112. I can't imagine a season where you only score 5 goals. And Gareth, I don't think you mentioned a little bit about MK Dons, but for Lincoln City, it's bad enough for the fans. But if you're as players, you're conceding consistently and you've only scored 5 goals all season, that is hard. It's hard to keep enjoying the game. It's hard to keep going. So I think we've got to give Lincoln City credit just for fulfilling the fixtures. Like we've spoken about a couple of the other leagues where they've just not been able to put a team together because I assume people have just sat there and gone, what's the point? We might as well not bother. At least on this one, they've gone out there, just like MK Dons, fulfilled every fixture, maintained the integrity of the competition, and gave it their best shot. You've got to credit that, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think, like again, similar to MK Dons, those players that have been there and have played a season at Tier 4 will be better players for it next year. Whether they get, whether there are teams that are still in this league that look at them and go, that they were the shining light in a disappointing season, let's see if we can bring them in, or whether it's actually that they're there and they're in a better position to play at Tier 5 and bounce back, I don't know. But yeah, it's tricky, and obviously with football at this level, people have jobs and lives and all sorts of things, and so to dedicate your Sundays to traveling to just get battered every weekend, to score on average 1 goal every 4 games is so difficult. And kudos to the players that continue to turn up. Kudos to the coaching staff who, there are times where I'm like, what is the team talk here? Like, what is it that you can say after 20 defeats to try and inspire something from them? I don't know. It's not going to be the season that anybody there wanted. But I think that there becomes a point in the season where you go, okay, this season is done. This season is right off. We know what we're doing. Let's look ahead and prepare for next season. Let's look ahead and try and think where we're going to be and what we need to do in order to be successful next year. And hopefully those foundations have been laid so that they can have a strong season. And I think there are times where not everybody wants to be promoted straight away because not everyone feels like they're ready to do that. Some clubs are happy playing at a certain level. If Lincoln do want to come straight back up, then hopefully then that they're able to compete and be competitive in the whichever regional league they'll go into. I assume it would be the East Midlands. Yeah, I hope we have a stronger season next season for everybody involved, and can and just enjoy football again, because that this year cannot have been enjoyable for anybody involved.
No, not at all. And I mean, Kings Lynn, we featured them at the start of last season. They went down from Tier 5 to Tier 6, and they finished bottom of Tier 6 so far at the moment as well. But they have had a slightly better season insofar as they've got a few more points. But it's been a very difficult year still, even for them. So I hope, like you say, it's not another Kings Lynn season, and they do well. Right, Division 1 South East, we're down to the final 2 divisions, and these I do not think are going to take a huge amount of time to sail through. We already knew that Ashford and Seaward are down, so we don't need to talk too much about that. The big news over the last couple of weeks is that Real Bedford have indeed won the championship. Again, not a single game lost as yet, with 1 game to go, and they've done incredibly well. 14 wins, 7 draws was enough to beat out some big names there in the terms of Norwich City. London Bees have been around for a while. QPR have been in this league for a long time. Cambridge United seem to perennially sort of be hanging around in the sort of the 8th, 9th positions there as well. So there's some big names in this league, Chris. But Real Bedford, they were in our league last year, and they just absolutely romped that as well. But they've done it here. Peter McCormack there, the chairman, has obviously invested heavily in making Real Bedford into the brand that it is. And now it looks like they're off to the Southern Premier. Can you see Real Bedford being more like hashtag than Billericay. You know, we mentioned Billericay going up and they're struggling. Hashtag seems to have the brand. They've got the idea behind it. They've got the marketing behind it, just like Hashtag. It's probably going to be another story like that, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see them challenging for promotion next season, would it?
No, and I think I didn't necessarily expect them to win the league first time of asking, but I was expecting them to be up there given the backing they've got and the players that they were able to bring in over summer, mostly from MK Dons. I think memory serves me right. I think 16 left MK Dons, and Charlie Bill as well. So for them to just do a switch doesn't really surprise me. I mean, as well, I mean, they're 5 clear of Norwich. I mean, Norwich have kind of done that themselves. I was expecting a lot from them when Andy Cook went there, and they have proven that they were going to be there or thereabouts. The big problem for them is they went 8 games without a win. They got 4 points out of 24 between the end of September and the new year. They went 3 months in the league without winning a game, and that's what really hurt them. You look at their record there, the 5 draws, the 3 losses came in one long run. That they went on one run where they drew and lost and didn't win for 3 months, and that's what's cost them the league title. But no, I wasn't surprised that Real Bedford would do that well, particularly with the amount of backing that they've got. And I think they will continue to do well as long as that backing remains. Similarly, towards the bottom, Chesham United have always been kind of around it for the last few years. They've always seemed to just survive. I mean, it was clear very early on that Ashford Town and London Seaward were nowhere near everybody else. I don't think we really appreciated until they played each other a few weeks ago and Ashford won 7-0, quite how different the gap was between those two themselves. Ashford now have secured their spot in 11th in the division, and we'll be hoping that Billericay Town finish in 11th in the Southern Premier Division, because that at the moment, if that result goes their way, then Ashford will be given the reprieve other than Portishead Town. But yeah, it's been a league where you could kind of see where it was going to go very early on, and it's just kind of ticked on all the time, really. It hasn't had the excitement that like the Division 1 North has had.
Good job you're here. All these possible permutations that could happen. Billericay going down, says Ashford. Oh my word. The level of mental gymnastics you've got to do at this level sometimes.
Well, the other thing to point out is that they are offered a reprieve. They don't have to take it.
Oh, yes,
they're offered
true.
it.
True. I mean, if you're Ashford, you'd take that, surely, wouldn't you?
It depends if you're confident that you're going to be able to change things in summer and not have a season like this again.
True. I mean, if they didn't do it, would they offer it to Seaward?
I believe that's how it's going to work, but I don't think Seaward particularly would sort it either. I mean, London is so awash with great clubs that, particularly, I mean, it's the financial side of going down to Tier 5 as well, which, Gareth, I'm sure you'll be able to, you'll know about is so much less than moving up into Tier 4.
No, absolutely. It is a little bit like offering out a used handkerchief, this relegation spot at some point, isn't it, for the reprieves. But there we go. One last league to take a look at. I'm sure Gareth won't mind if we skip past him on that league. Just to pop into the Southwest, which, to be honest, we've known about, we've spoken about. It's done. We know how it is looking. AFC Bournemouth were the first champions in the WNL, and they remain so because that's how it worked. With one thing we do know is that Portishead are the other team in the relegation waiting room. We knew that Southampton women were going. Chris, I'm just going to ask you to very simply just give us a bit of a rundown on here. The Southwest is the one where we struggle. It's not so bad when we get Stu Barker to come on. And he's able to give us a little bit of a chat down here. But this is a long way away from my house. We get the idea of what's going on, and we do have a good conversation from here. But is there any shocks, any surprises from what you've seen here? Because I mean, Bournemouth, Moneyfield, Swindon, you kind of expect them to be up near the top. But when you start looking down the bottom, and the big shock for me is always seeing Maidenhead in the Southwest, because it's not a million miles from Windsor, and I can't quite get my head around how that's the southwest of England when you consider that Windsor's right next to Heathrow. But any surprise and shocks in this division for you?
Okay, well, I'll address that point first. Is that happened a few years ago when Cheshire United used to be Southwest. They moved across to Southeast to balance the leagues up because of the geography of teams that came up. And then there was, at the time, not 100% sure if it's still in force, a rule that if you moved laterally, you couldn't move back for 3 years. So then when the same situation happened again the next year, Chesham couldn't move back. So Maidenhead were the next furthest west, as you say, despite the fact they are right near Heathrow. So that's the situation there. Not surprised by Bournemouth. They only just missed out last year, having gone unbeaten to Exeter. You sensed early on when they were scoring for fun early on in the season. If I have a look at some of Bournemouth's stats, they were doing so well and they were going unbeaten. 9-0, 4-0, 7-0, 7-0. They've only conceded 2 goals at home all season. They ranked top in the division tier 4 and the FAWNL for a vast majority of the statistics. Moneyfield thought they would do well. I think they're going to go from strength to strength. Swindon again, you'd expect. Bristol Rovers didn't expect them to do quite so well. Fair play to them. And Worthing, obviously having come across from Southeast, I thought they would do a little bit better than they did because they were really challenging for that Southeast title last season. And for them to move across and not be quite as close to Moneyfields and Swindon as I thought they would be is a little bit of a surprise to me. Keynsham have done well this year. Bournemouth Sports, it was always a battle, but they've managed to hold on. They were struggling early on in the year with meeting the ground grading criteria. So whether they've been able to sort that out or not, I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll find out when the allocations come out, because there was risk of being expelled at one point. Portishead Town at the moment are in that reprieve spot. If everything stays as it is, they will be offered it to stay in the division.
And I've got to be honest, if you're Portishead, you would absolutely, I think, be the ones that are likely to want to keep that, because they have been reasonably competitive within the league. So that would make sense. Gareth, my final question is for you. And the question is absolutely nothing to do with what we see on the screen there. We're going to get rid of that. My question is, have you been paying attention to the level of details that Chris has been able to come out with here? So things such as 53rd out of the entire 72, this type of thing, because this is the level of analysis I'm going to be expecting as we move into 25, 26.
Well, I mean, that's unbelievable. Like, yeah, even just knowing that they're 10th out of 12th in the league for away goals scored is mad. But then when you compare them to the entire WNL, that's crazy. So, maybe I need a spreadsheet, but I'm not good at spreadsheet.
Mine's a spreadsheet. I mean, it's got like 8,000 data points on it in order to bring that up. But all I have to do is put the scores in each week, and it calculates everything for me.
But for that, Chris, you need to know which formulas to put in, and I can just about have things rag rated in terms of scores and grades and things like that at work. So, 8,000 data points feels a bit beyond me. Although some of the girls seem to expect me to be able to pull out all of these data points when they ask, like, how many goals did I get in the FA Cup, or like how many assists have I got? So. I mean, obviously, Barry would know that I play than Barry if we score penalties, because Barry's meaning doesn't give them the assist if they win the penalty.
Yes, indeed. And you don't. Absolutely not. That is a lie that only happens in the fantasies of the Fantasy Premier League. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Honestly, it's so good to have a different voice on as well, and just somebody with an incredible amount of knowledge. I've admired your work from afar for a long time, so well done, and thank you for everything you do. Where can people, I see you put the app there, but where can people see your WNL information? Because we do every other week with the WNL, we alternate between this and tier 5, so but where could people see your roundups and your 8,000 data points.
Yeah, so at W Football Chat is the place on, I still call it Twitter, I'm not calling it X, is the place, and then it's the same on YouTube. If you just search the Women's Football Chat, you'll see the logo, and there's a weekly roundup show there. Thursdays 8 o'clock, and unfortunately the whiteboard behind me that has 7 weeks worth of fixtures on it is about to become empty. That's every single team. I'm hiding one column, but every single of the 72, I put their next 7 weeks worth of fixtures on there. That's about to become empty. But yeah, at W Football Chat on Twitter, it's got all the news, and I do the fixtures and the tables. Slight brag, I beat the league every single week to put out the tables on a Sunday afternoon. So I get quite a few clubs and people that retweet that. And yeah, that's it. And like I say, 183 episodes in. So come along and join.
Absolutely, and you definitely should do. I mean, honestly, I'm a bit of a stat freak myself. I love these sorts of things, and honestly, the level of effort you put into it, I don't know if anybody's ever said it to you, but thank you for what you've done for tier 3 and 4, because it's a labour of love. I know that, and it's been brilliantly done. So well done, you and Gareth. Of course, thank you for joining us as well as ever.
No, it's been a pleasure.
We will be back next week where we'll be looking at tier 5, as we often do. And I'm sure we will have to cover whatever has happened over this weekend in those 3 remaining leagues that have not yet crowned the champions. So we will be back to do our roundup as ever next Wednesday. We're not quite on episode 180 something. I've forgotten where we're on now. We're on about 63, 35. I've forgotten. It's on here somewhere.
32.
Where was it? 32. That's the one. Brilliant. Thank you very much. We'll have that. Why not? Is it that? If we throw this up, it will tell me. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. 32. All right. So we'll be back for 33 if I'm not sacked, because I might sack myself for not knowing how many episodes we've done. Anyway, there we go. I'm gabbling. See you later. See you next week.